Hello, everybody. Welcome to Oak Glen Tobacconist and to our fifth episode of Oak Glen Tobacconist. Glad you guys could join us. Tonight, we are going to be focusing on Aganorsa Leaf. Aganorsa Leaf is not only known for amazing cigar blends, but also the fact that they are a huge tobacco supplier. So, just getting a few things settled here. Make sure we're all good to go. Alrighty, so with starting this interview, it's kind of because of the release of the Supreme Leaf. For those who don't know, Aganorsa is huge in Corojo 99, Nicaraguan Corojo, Criollo 98, which we will be hearing from Terence himself very shortly. If you guys are smoking anything, if you are drinking anything, go ahead and drop in the comments so we can all see what you guys are enjoying tonight. Tonight I will be lighting up the Supreme Leaf. Probably maybe you've seen the cigar before. It has a rather striking label, and they release this about every 6 months. And so this was released in February. And as I say, Aganorsa works with Corojo 99. So this blend, as I understand it, is focused around there and really high quality tobacco. For the release of the Corona Gorda, I believe there's only 2,000 boxes that are released. We are fortunate enough to get a few in. Unfortunately, we are sold out in single stock, but we do have the sampler available. So if you have not tried Aganorsa Leaf, or if you'd like to try some of their amazing blends, which includes the Supreme Leaf, go ahead and click on the link in our description. That will take you to the website, and that's one of the first things you'll see in the big banner is we have our Supreme Leaf sampler. Don't hesitate to buy it because I guarantee it will go very quickly, as we've already seen in the singles. So I know you don't want to hear me go on for too long, so we're going to have Terence joining us. And there's a bit of a time difference, so we have an early evening. Unfortunately, it's sort of a later night. We got Chip on. Awesome, Chip. Glad to see you are smoking another Aganorsa Signature Maduro. Really good. I believe that is a shade-grown Maduro. We also have Adam. How's it going, Adam? Hopefully you're lighting something up. And Curtis, thanks for joining. Hey, Jason, what's going on? Smoking a Dama Velada with some coffee. Very nice. Coffee at this late date. Maybe you're going to work. I don't know. But Dama Velada will go well. So we're going to go ahead and bust this open, and we're going to have Terence join us. So once again, if you click on that link, it'll direct you to our website. Make certain that you pick up a sampler pack before they're gone. They're in very much limited supply. And so this is sort of a, I don't know if you can kind of see that. It's almost a closed foot on this Corona Gorda. I'm excited because smaller ring gauge kind of means more flavor on the wrapper. So without further ado, let's go ahead and welcome Terence Rielly all the way from Miami. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, brother. How are you?
Good, good. Can you hear me all right?
Perfectly. Can you hear me?
Yep. Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us. I know we kind of had a virtual interview for the first time in November, so it's good to have you back.
Thank you for having me again. I guess I did something right, so I'm back. So that's good.
There we go. There we go. Awesome. And so what are you smoking for tonight?
I'm smoking a Supreme Leaf Corona Gorda. I felt it was appropriate for the...
Yes. Yeah. I'm about to light it up as well. So I've smoked this in the Toro size. I was a bit late to the party when you guys released it last year in the Robusto size.
I've got one right here, actually.
Nice. Yes. So I was able to get my hands on Toro. Absolutely loved it. And talking with Jeremy, our rep out here, we were fortunate enough to jump on board for the Corona release. And being that you've smoked all three, do you have a preference in the size? Do you have a favorite?
I like the Corona Gorda, but I'm also the 6x46 is basically my favorite size. So I'm a little biased there, but I also like the flavor on it the most. I think it's the most very sharp flavor, very distinctive flavor. I think it's a little bit more potent than the other two. But again, that's part of the fun. I mean, somebody may say the Toro is the best or the Robusto is the best. So part of the fun is everybody figuring out what they like the most and smoking the cigars. That's the fun part.
Awesome. Well, we have a few here live in the audience, as well as some people came up to pick up our sampler pack, took it back. We have Curtis Bailey, who's about to light up the Supreme Leaf as well. As Aganorsa itself, it's really interesting kind of to see. I mean, although you guys are huge in tobacco production, the company of Aganorsa is not a long-lasting company. It's fairly new, isn't it?
Yeah, again, it's all relative, I guess. In tobacco years, it's not that old. If a business is 20-something years old, you'd be like, oh wow, you've been around for a while. But In our case, Eduardo Fernandez, the owner, he's Cuban, but he does not come from a tobacco background. His story is he ended up in South Florida after Castro confiscated all his property, or they donated it, depending on how you want to look at it. And he grew up in South Florida as an exile, like so many others. But he was never involved in tobacco, and he went into business. Is an entrepreneur. Was in the banking world. In the 80s or late 80s, he saw that pizza and Little Caesars and these type of restaurants were becoming very popular, and he took that model to Spain, which was kind of an emerging market at the time. And they created something called Telepizza, which is still around to this day, and it was a huge success. There's hundreds of locations. They took the company public, and within 6 or 7 years, he basically had all the money he ever needed and didn't have to work anymore. But after a couple of years of sitting around and living in Europe and reading the Wall Street Journal or whatever, he was kind of like, well, I don't know if I want to do this for the rest of my life. And his wife is Nicaraguan, and he went to Nicaragua, and he always wanted to be involved in farming. When he grew up, he went to school in Connecticut and would see the tobacco fields there, and just always wanted to be part of, be a farmer basically. And so he got involved in pigs, cattle, and tobacco. And on the tobacco side, because he didn't have any history in it, he brought over a bunch of Cuban agronomists and guys that worked for had worked for Cuba Tobacco over to Nicaragua. And these weren't guys he just pulled off the streets of Havana and said, hey, I need some token Cubans for my operation here. These were high-ranking guys that had been in Cuba Tobacco for some cases half a century. And they knew Cuban cigars when they were kind of at their peak and were most renowned for their flavor and consistency. And he took these guys who had all this knowledge and gave them the resources that Nicaragua has in terms of soil, in terms of all the necessary supplies you need to grow tobacco, in terms of having the capital and to be patient and ferment correctly and cure correctly. You can't rush these processes. It's you can't just flip a switch and you have tobacco ready to sell. So he did all that, and what was interesting is, generally speaking, farmers only grow when you pay them to grow. Basically, they don't. They have a buyer for when it's done, because otherwise you're kind of like, well, what do I do with this? And for him, he just started growing, and he said, well, if you've got a good product, somebody will beat a path to your door. And that's what happened. We ended up selling to a whole bunch of different people. I think the Oliva family were one of the first. And then that was the main business, and he was very happy with that. He really didn't want to do anything else. But as we were selling people leaf and got to know people, a lot of them asked us to get involved in other aspects of the business, and so we got into manufacturing and distribution as well. So now we're vertically integrated in terms of the tobacco production. From seed to ash, we control that whole process. And that gives us a special, unique character in terms of flavor and aroma. That's not like anything else. It's the people that we have that grow the tobacco and roll and how they do all that. Also the seed varietals we use, and that just control. If you don't cure right, if you don't ferment right, if you don't blend right, if you don't age right, if you don't do all these things, you're going to lose something. And because we're able to control that process, we can kind of control our destiny and ensure that those characteristics we want to make it into the cigar for ultimate experience or optimal experience arrive there.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and I mean, kind of how you were saying, had some of like Cuban expertise come into the company. Corojo itself is from Cuba, correct? Like the first strain of it.
Yeah. So with the story of Corojo it goes back to a farm in Cuba. That's what it's named for. And it was a very popular tobacco, but in the 70s, it developed blue mold, which basically decimated it. It almost ruined the Cuban tobacco industry. And so after that, they started growing different variants of that original strain for resistance to disease, for yield, for burn quality, all these types of things. And there's a whole bunch of these different seeds. There's Corojo 99, Criollo 98, Habano 2000, Corojo 2006, Corojo 2012. I think there's a Corojo 2013. I mean, there's a whole bunch. And that year is just for the year that it kind of came online and started being used. And we use Corojo and Criollo. Corojo is not common, or Corojo 99, I should say. And Corojo 99 is not commonly grown in Nicaragua at all. We're the only people that grow it at the capacity that we do. So it's kind of unique to us. And then Criollo 98 is more commonly grown in Nicaragua. So that's more quintessential Nicaraguan style tobacco, especially from Esteli. And so we're kind of that synthesis of these two seeds with very different characteristics, but they blend very well together. Yeah.
So just real quick for all those watching, if you have any questions for Terence, go ahead and drop them in the comments. I'll go ahead and pull them. Just if there's some things that you guys are wondering about the company of Aganorsa, about some of the blends, some of the tobacco used. Recently, I shared a kind of like a short video that you guys did for Aganorsa on Instagram, which was very educating to me. I mean, it's only about like 4 or 5 minutes, but basically going into how you guys use Corojo 99 and what the process looks like. And honestly, I kind of wondering, do you think you'll have more videos like that coming out, more telling the story of Aganorsa?
Yeah, I think that's very important. We try to keep them not too long. People's attention spans aren't necessarily 20-minute videos, half-hour videos. It's hard to keep someone that long. So we kind of put them in fairly short segments that people can digest and enjoy. And also, a lot of times, it's a lot of words that people haven't heard of. Aganorsa is not an easy word for people to say. And then Corojo, Criollo, Esteli, Jalapa, Condega, and so we kind of try to break it into short bits. And we're planning on actually doing some videos. I'll be in Nicaragua in a couple of weeks and doing some videos down there on our actual operations and showing our capacities and our abilities and the great tobacco we grow.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Now, I've kind of heard this story before, but some people who have not, the name Aganorsa, it stands for a multiple of things. What exactly is that?
Yeah, it's Agricultura Granadero Norteña SA, I think is what it stands for. It's basically, in Spanish, SA is like incorporated in English. That means like business. Or, and the rest basically, is a farming and agriculture company. I mean, I always joke that, if you think Aganorsa is hard to say, try saying what it actually stands for.
Yeah. So honestly, from Light Up, I can see what you're saying, that kind of sharpness. I'm getting more of that kind of Corojo 99. And I mean, Supreme Leaf has just an outstanding name. So what exactly with that Supreme Leaf name, what's the type of Corojo 99 that we're trying in this? Is it aged longer? What's the process?
So it's a couple of things. The wrapper, if you notice, is a little bit darker, so for color quality, we wanted to have a certain grade. Sometimes, you can have a great leaf and but it kind of looked blotchy or ugly or things like that. You usually use that for something that's not as high quality. But that's aesthetics. In terms of the tobaccos inside, what we always say that we grow. I mean, we harvest 17,000 bales a year, so it's a lot of tobacco. But there on certain fields and certain farms, there's particular lots or sections that produce tobacco that's unique, and so when you have something like that, you either have to kind of dilute it and blend it in with other things, so you lose some of those characteristics that would be dominant, or you can do with something like a limited edition where you utilize those tobaccos in a more concentrated blend, so that they stand out and they're more pronounced. And so Supreme Leaf is an example of that. And I always kind of joke, if you don't put those type of colors into your packaging unless you're confident of the product, because they certainly stand out.
Right. Well, and actually we have a question from Curtis Bailey, who's a local customer here and also a graphic design artist. He's very interested on how the label came about. I mean, you have those stark colors. What was the process of bringing the label to life?
So first of all, like most of the good ideas that we have, it's not mine. There's a gentleman in the industry, Brian from Pravada Cigars.
Yeah, and we actually just did a live with him about a week ago. Yeah.
So Brian, we do some projects with him, and he came to me and he said, Terence, I think Aganorsa tobacco is amazing. But you have very classic looking packaging on most of your Aganorsa tied product. You also have Lunatic and things like that, which are a little bit more modern or different and non-traditional in appearance.
Yeah.
But for your Aganorsa lines, they tend to be classic looking. Like the signature is very classic looking. Our Miami stuff is very classic looking. He's like, I think you're missing a segment of the market by not doing something a little bit that's going to appeal to a more modern consumer. And if you have a blend that's a really great blend, I think I have an idea for how we can bring attention to that in a way that might be passed over otherwise. And so he created the design for it. And just as a side story, when I first showed it at a sales meeting, everybody hated it. I thought I was going to get fired. They're like, what are you doing? Like, you're going to put these colors on it looks like, they go to LSU or Clemson or something like that. Like, they're like, these aren't cigar colors. And so I actually went back to him, and he won't admit this, but he kind of yelled at me, and he's like, no, the design works. And he actually, to his credit, he gave me a whole breakdown of like all the reasons like he did it the way he did it. And then I said, okay, so let's go back, and then I felt confident that it was gonna work. And it did. It's a great blend. It's an outstanding blend. And I think if we'd put it in just traditional packaging, a lot of people would just walk by it and said, oh, another cigar that looks like a lot of other cigars out there and doesn't stand out. And because it stood out, some people didn't like the appearance of it, but almost everybody noticed it, and they all wanted to try it. I had somebody tell me, like, I wanted to hate the cigar because of how it looked, but after I smoked it, I thought it was amazing. So it shows you kind of the balance of both the importance of blend and packaging and being successful.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I mean, the first way I heard about it was actually on social media, seeing it. It's definitely an eye catcher. And it's definitely one of those, I mean, personally for me, I think that the label and the marketing is on point. I even think the box is on point. To where even not knowing much about it, it makes me pick it off the shelf over other things as well. And then kind of to what you had said, the blends kind of have to back up the statement as well. And it definitely does that. And kind of some of that, like, at least for me, when I'm trying it, some of that Corojo 99, like cedar and wood and earth is really predominant. And even it has a little bit of pepper up front, but then it kind of has that calming, like, creaminess on the back end. So I'm thoroughly enjoying it so far.
Yeah, and I like our Corojo also tends to kind of make you salivate. You get that kind of we call it a gusher, where on the sides of your mouth you get that salivatory effect, and if that's even a word. And I like that. Some tobaccos dry your palate, and you kind of need to drink some water to and Corojo does not do that. And so that's one of the things I really like about our Corojo tobaccos is that they have that impact on your palate that way, and they kind of have a lingering sweetness. It kind of leaves on the finish a nice sweet, clean finish. So. To me, those are, again, one of the things, of the fun things is that, like, everyone has kind of their own palate. And so, we do different expressions. Like, for instance, we have some cigars that are more Criollo 98 dominant. And there's definitely a lot of people that prefer that. They like that kind of earthiness, that grittiness. They're even a little salt, on the roof of their palate from it. A lot of people, like something more dominated by that. So it's all that's the fun, is like I was saying before, is like, you smoke and you find what you like. And what's the good about our tobaccos, if we can kind of isolate the ones you prefer, like if you like our Corojo more, then I can say, okay, you're going to enjoy this. Or if you're more, Criollo dominant preference, I can say, okay, you're going to really like this cigar. Rather, because I'm sure you experience this. The guy that comes in and goes, yeah, I like cigars that are, mild, like Macanudo and Padron and La Flor Dominicana and Davidoff. And you're like, well, those are 4 different cigars, man. I mean, like, they don't taste anything alike. What the hell do I give this guy? I mean, maybe he likes everything, but like if they can say, I like Aganorsa's Corojo, okay, now it's a much better, higher success rate of giving them something they're going to enjoy.
Right, and honestly, one of our favorites here is the Torch that you guys released, and that is a really good. I don't want to use the cliche of like kind of gateway to pepper, but in a way, for people that are like, I like a little bit of pepper, but not too much, it's more satisfying, and you can kind of see where it plays its part because you light it up. There's some pepper, there's some spice at front, and then it really calms down to where that's not what they're being hit with the whole time. It's very complex.
That's the exact. I'm glad to hear you say that, because that's exactly the process. It kind of like that brush foot wakes up the palate a little bit with that pepper, and then it hits the wrapper and it rounds out and it goes away. So it's kind of giving you a little taste of that, without overwhelming you. So that's good to hear. When I say it, I work for the company. Yeah, it means more when you say it.
Well, and so we have a gentleman by the name of Jim, and he's about to light up a warped skyflower, and he's just confirming that comes from Aganorsa tobacco, right?
Absolutely, that's made in our factory. Kyle is a great partner of ours, and we're fortunate to do a lot of projects with him, and that's one of them. And again, one of the things we always say is the people that buy tobacco from us, or the people that we make cigars for, that's the best testament to our quality, because these guys can buy. They can buy from other places, or they can have cigars made at other places, and they choose us. So for us, that's really a feather in our cap.
Yeah. Well, and I know when we first brought in the brand, a lot of people who had not heard of Aganorsa, they'll be like, okay, well, what is this brand? And I'll normally say, well, you're a fan of the Owense by Foundation Cigar. That's Aganorsa tobacco. So it's kind of a good segue into that.
Yeah, and Nick, another guy. I mean, he was the buyer at Drew Estate for all those years, and was able to buy tobacco from all over the world. And when he was coming out with his own cigar, his first one was made by us. So we really, again, another person that is a testament to the quality of our leaf. Yeah.
So we have a question from Francis Lee about the rare leaf reserve. When was it first conceived, brought about, and actually where did the blend come from? Like, who thought of the rare leaf?
So rare leaf is actually been quite a process. It was supposed to come out probably at least 6 months ago, maybe more now. But with COVID and other factors, it kind of got delayed. And we really wanted to make sure we did it right. We got it had an initial one band, and we kind of changed that and there's a bunch of factors, but anyway, the idea was that Supreme Leaf is Corojo 99 dominant, Rare Leaf is Criollo 98 dominant.
Okay.
And so we wanted to give a different, two different options for people. For my palate, I'm more Supreme Leaf because I prefer a Corojo. But if you prefer our Criollo tobaccos, like the Supreme Leaf is excellent. Just don't smoke it on an empty stomach. I had one. We have what's called, and nobody feels bad for me about this, and I don't expect them to. But when before the product's released, we do what's called validation, where we go through it, the different sizes, and smoke them, and and see how they're performing. Is it burning right? Is it tasting right? Is it ready? And all these things. And I decided one morning with my coffee, after I go running in the morning and work out a little bit, and then I'll have my coffee, and on weekends I'll have a cigar, and usually it's one Aganorsa Leaf Connecticut, or maybe the Guardian of the Farm Natural or something like that. But I said, we'll have the Rare Leaf on a fresh palate first thing in the morning. We'll see how it goes with the coffee. And I kind of got a little woozy from it, and that hasn't happened to me in a long time. And so I was like, wow. So it's much more. It's a bolder smoke in terms of strength. It's not aggressive, but it's definitely got not something to have on an empty stomach. Right. And again, it's what we're always looking to do is fill the gaps in the portfolio in terms of, okay, do we have something that fills this need? Do we have something that fills that need?
Right.
And with Rare Leaf, what's neat about it is that the idea was it was meant to be in production constantly. We have a select retail partner group that have access to it, and that way we're able to produce it consistently rather than just once time and then it's gone, and 6 months later it comes back and then it's gone, and that's been a consistent kind of dilemma, because like I was saying before, like for Supreme Leaf, you want to make sure that blend stays what it is. You don't want to dilute it. But at the same time, the guys get it in and they sell through it, and then they call you and say, "Hey, I got 2 guys looking for a box," and I say, "I don't, can they wait 6 months?" And that's usually frustrating to the retailer. Right. It's also frustrating if they get a whole bunch in and they're not as good as last time because we made 6 times as much. Right. So the idea with the Rare was kind of balance those things out and have something consistently available that was Supreme Leaf quality.
Now, do you foresee with the Supreme Leaf, that being a continuous 6-month release, like ongoing, or?
Yeah, that's. I think. I mean, again, we're trying to increase it to the extent that we can. The first run was like 500 boxes, and then we did, I think, 1,000 this past run, and now we're up to we did 2,000, which is still, again, it's not a lot of cigars. If we were trying to live off that, we'd all be out of business. But but as you know, we're increasing it hopefully to, supplier partners. It's never a fun conversation when somebody's like, I've been supporting you all year, and we buy your JFR and we buy your bundles and everything, and you don't have any for me, or all you can send me is a couple boxes, because we want to reward our partners, but also we don't want to just send them stuff that's not what they expect. So that's the trouble with that, and by every 6 months, it gives us enough time to kind of build up some inventory of production and let them sit and make them right, and then hit the streets, and hopefully we'll find the right number that is, we can still produce it to the same high quality we've been producing it, but in a little bit more than we have in the past.
Now, real quick, just as a reminder for people, I am smoking the Supreme Leaf. We have it available in the Aganorsa sampler that's on our website. Click on the link that's in the description. That'll lead you directly there. Unfortunately, we sold out of our normal supply, other than what we set aside in samplers, in 2 hours.
Speak of the devil,
Yeah. So if you want to try the Supreme Leaf, I highly recommend it. Go ahead and click on the link. Pick up a sampler tonight. They're going to go fast. And for me, like I said, I've smoked in the Toro. This is the first, the Corona Gorda. I'd probably have to side with you. I like the intensity of the Corojo flavor that I'm receiving more in the Toro. In the future releases, do you see revisiting sizes, or do you think it's going to be a new interpretation each time?
I mean, I think we still have a few more sizes to go through. Also, we're considering if we'd want to do a traditional parejo rather than a box press size and things like that. Again, one of the things that I always try to be cognizant of is that when we come out and we say we have 2,000 boxes, we have 2,000 boxes. And so if you come out with 2,000 boxes and then 6 months later you come out with another 2,000, I feel like you're tricking the consumer a little bit there, or the retailer as well. So we may come back again, but it'll be a while, so that we can say, listen, we haven't come out with this in quite a while. We want to release some sizes so other people can try them and things like that. And at that point, most of the people have smoked through everything anyway. They're just as happy to get their hands on some as anyone else. So that's kind of the thinking behind that. And by the way, your sampler is awesome. I saw some pics. It's a great opportunity to get a real lot of different aspects of Aganorsa and different expressions of our tobacco. And I was thank you for putting that together, because it looks like a great sampler.
Well, and I was actually talking to one of our locals here today who picked it up, and I was like, we put together quite a bit of sampler packs that show a really good wide variety of the company and try to hit different areas, because oftentimes if something doesn't completely grab you off the eye, you may miss it because of, I just don't really feel like it. But every cigar in that sampler is a favorite. Like when we had talked to Jeremy, I had my eye on both Guardian and the Farms, and those are incredibly unique, especially with the shade-grown Corojo Maduro, because people that are like, hey, I like Maduro cigars, but I want to try something new. It's like the go-to. It's a very different flavor, but you still have some of that Maduro sweetness.
You should come work for us. I mean, you're saying all this stuff that Jeremy's done a great job. One or the other.
Yeah. Well, Jeremy has done a great job.
but no, that's really exactly so for a Maduro. You generally are with San Andres, or you're with Broadleaf from Pennsylvania or Connecticut or wherever, and those are great wrappers, and we use actually quite a bit of San Andres. But there's a lot of them out there. Whereas the shade-grown Corojo Maduro is a proprietary wrapper that we grow in Jalapa under cheesecloth, under shade, which you'd usually associate with a lighter colored cigar, with a Connecticut shade-grown or something. But we put it through a longer fermentation process with the higher primings that are thicker leaves that can handle that, and so you get that dark, rich Maduro hue. But you're getting the flavor from Corojo as well. So it's something that's really special and kind of speaks to the benefits of being vertically integrated. But it was good to hear you say that's exactly what it's supposed to be. It's an opportunity to try a Maduro that's not like any other Maduro.
Yeah. And Curtis is just dropping a comment saying that his Supreme Leaf is pairing extremely well with a Glenlivet sherry cask.
Sounds delicious.
Yeah. Right now I've got a bit of bourbon. It's also going very well. So do you foresee the Rare Leaf being a continuous like offering for? I know you said select retailers, but basically that will be ongoing.
Yeah, so that's the idea. Now we've got a little catching up to do. I'm getting a lot of flack because in the beginning, obviously, everybody wants it all at the same time. It's a little bit hard to do that. But once we get kind of moving and we get those initial orders out, the idea is that now, again, if they order 50 boxes of it, they're not going to probably get that. But at least that they have a continual supply for that customer that consistently buys it, or those guys that they come in and are looking for. Like, we want to make sure that they have consistent access to it throughout the year. So it's again, we'll see what happens. But that's the idea behind it.
Now, I remember when Supreme Leaf was first released, it was last February.
Yeah,
correct?
It was right about now. No.
And so when it come out, you released it in a Robusto size, and I think you had it offered at the TPE show.
Yeah.
And so right about then, I wasn't totally aware. We actually hadn't brought in Aganorsa at that time, and so I remember Jeremy had told me that you guys were like sold out in a matter of hours.
Yeah, so it was our first time attending TPE as with a booth. I had gone the previous year. The people that run it were nice enough to say, "Hey, just fly out here and we'll comp your room. Just take a look and see what we're doing here." And it was interesting to see because one, I didn't have to do anything all day for 3 days, which was great. And I just walked around and kind of saw what was going on, saw who was there and who the retailers that were there and the vendors who were there, and I said, well, this makes sense, and so we did a little kiosk, and it was just me, and to kind of incentivize people to come visit us there, we gave them first access to Supreme Leaf, and yeah, it was. I mean, I lost my voice, and it was really a massive success, and so we're very fortunate because.
Awesome.
I couldn't. I mean, I couldn't talk after Vegas for 3 days, but it was worth it. It was worth it in the end.
Good. Do you foresee, or at least just as more of what your opinion is, do you think TPE or PCA is a reality this year?
So we're operating as they are. We're planning for it, and then if they decide to change something, and then we'll just roll with the punches like we did last year. I mean, for those types of things, we just prepare, and then if it goes forward, then great, and then if it doesn't for whatever reason, we'll do what we have to do to be successful despite that. So
yeah. So Francis has another question. And it actually comes with another question of mine. So he asked what a day in the life of Terence looks like. and I actually asked this of most people that I interview with that too. How many cigars do you normally smoke on a daily basis?
So I'm very feast or famine with that. I mean, especially like we're having like Supreme and Rare coming out. So I can be up to 7 a day, from that, or in the factory, down the factory, or traveling with our retail partners. When you go in the shop and you're like, nah, I don't really feel like having a cigar, and you only see these guys a couple times a year. It's kind of awkward, It's like you go to the steakhouse and the owner's kind of like, well, I think I mostly am just gonna have salad or whatever. You're like, what's going on? So that I can have quite a bit sometimes, but when I get back from a trip or something like that, I might not smoke at all for 3 or 4 days, just to kind of refresh my palate and kind of put it back in keel, so I don't blow it out completely. So it's kind of feast or famine. In terms of the everyday life, I would say the last year is less, like the everyday life for a lot, as it is for all of us. But I either on the road traveling, visiting our retail partners and working with them, or I'm in our office in Miami and kind of helping to coordinate these releases and launches and working with our reps and the factory to make sure everything's going the way we want it to. And that's kind of the daily life.
Okay, and I mean, COVID aside, normally are you on the road quite a bit, like visiting brick and mortars, or are you more behind the scenes?
No, I go out to, prior to COVID, I would say I was on the road close to 2.5 weeks on average per month. Some months it was more because, it's just that time of year. And, in other months, like December, it might be a week or something like that. But generally speaking, I would say it would work out to about 2.5 weeks of the month between going to Nicaragua, going to see our retail partners, going to trade shows. Those all, ended up working out to quite a bit of travel.
Okay.
In terms of now, I would say it's closer to about a week out of the month, and that's partly simply because, for instance, the great state of California, where you are, it's hard to go to certain places and operate. I was in New York in October, and it had kind of opened up a little, but it was still like you had to go in the store with the mask, and then if you stood up, you had to have the mask on. But you could smoke without the mask, but you had to be sitting. And then it's just hard to do anything like with all these.
Right.
And then there can only be so many people in there, and so now you're a person in the store, and so you count as a person. So the retailer now has one less consumer he can have in.
Right.
So we've kind of. I'm basically going to the places where things are more open, and it's not causing an inconvenience for the retailer, because you don't want to be causing him problems. He's got enough with all these crazy things going on. So.
Right. Yeah, no, totally. And we have another question saying Lancero. Do you ever see perhaps Supreme Leaf being released as a Lancero?
So let me preface this by saying I love Lanceros. I think Lanceros are great. Lanceros, from a business standpoint, are not great sizes. They just aren't. One is that you'll sit there and you'll tell the guy, listen, do you know how hard it is to roll something like this? And the tobaccos have to be placed perfectly, and you do the whole spiel. And the guy goes, that looks like a girly cigar. And then they go on and they pick up their whatever it is they smoke, and they just
their Gordo 6x60.
Yeah. They just can't. That's how they think, man. And you can't really change that too much. I mean, again, you can work on them over time, but like I like as a retailer, you can convert. There's some stores that do a great job with Lanceros because they've built that clientele, because they spend time with their, I don't have that luxury to kind of do that. And also Lancero smokers generally they're not loyal to a particular blend. They tend to want to smoke every different type of Lancero. Yeah. But there's very few that, again, you would maybe know more because you have regular customers that you see every day. But most of the Lancero smokers I know, they're always looking for the new thing. So when you can only come out with one size of something on a project, you're cutting a lot of people off with the Lancero. That said, who knows? Maybe we'll get to a point where we'll say, and Supreme Leaf is more of a project for that type of thing, because there's only so many of them. So maybe I won't say no, but that's kind of the challenge of the Lancero, is that you're always kind of looking. I have a fiduciary responsibility of the company, to come out with the things that are most viable, not necessarily what I would enjoy smoking most.
Right. Well, and are you familiar with Dave Garofalo?
Of course, yeah, very well.
Yeah. And so, I listen to his podcast regularly, Cigar Authority. We actually we interviewed him here on the channel.
Oh, wow.
One of the first interviews we did. And he actually put it really well on his podcast, basically of saying, like, Lanceros taste great, but they're kind of the bane of retailers' existence, in the fact that you have that one customer like, hey, I'd smoke them. But it's like you bring in multiple boxes, and it's like, well, they're going to sit for a while because they're not what the average consumer is looking for.
Yeah, and that guy wants to try. He wants to get a couple. They're usually, maybe they'll buy a box one time, but they just tend not to be that guy that comes in. Again, the guy that comes in and just buys that box every Friday or whatever. That's not the Lancero guy. So, as a retailer, you have to kind of say, well, I'd like to keep my power on and pay my bills. I don't know if I can survive if this is the primary consumer I'm catering to. And
honestly, we find a happy middle ground in sizes like Corona Gorda. There's a handful, like Southern Draws Rosa Sharon that was released, their Desert Rose, and even Black Label Trading Company. That people call it Corona Gorda, Corona Larga, but that you get a lot of that wrapper to filler ratio. But it's definitely more of an accessible size, at least from my standpoint.
Absolutely, and 6x46, like I said, it's my favorite size. But we wouldn't have done it if it was like a size, if it was kind of perceived the way a Lancero is, where it's kind of a niche. People will smoke that size. In a way, the Lancero it's just unique. It's long. It's very thin. It just the Corona, you're like, it's kind of like a Robusto, I guess. It's close enough, and
right.
And so, it's just more accessible than the Lancero. The Lancero is kind of sui generis. It's its own thing. And the guys that smoke it are kind of a different type of consumer, where most other sizes are kind of, you can't really say that about.
Right. Now, I know, too, Aganorsa is a big they press a lot of like the fumas where you're smoking the single leaf, which
Yes, sir.
eventually, hopefully, for some future, we would love to have you guys out and do that experience of smoking one leaf tobacco, tasting that. But, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel kind of in this size, you're getting more of the Corojo dominant side to where it's a closer, for the consumer, a closer thing to be smoking. This is the tobacco I'm tasting.
Yeah, absolutely. So this would be if by the way, with the fumas, we could even do it at Zoom at some point, or of course in the store. Like that's always best. But if so, please, I'd love to do that with you guys because it's a great way to really appreciate the tobaccos and understand why you like what you like. And if somebody were to smoke the Corojo from Jalapa that we have, Fuma, just the pure tobacco, and they're like, this is the one I like. I'm less interested in the Criollo. I want to get a lot of that Corojo. I would definitely say Supreme Leaf. That's a great option. That's definitely one that you could say, okay, you're gonna like this.
Okay. And we have another question about, I mean, it's probably given that for the most part you smoke Aganorsa. Are there other brands or other cigars that you enjoy?
Yeah, so I mean, we'll take out the ones that we make, because I enjoy those very much as well. But that's kind of unfair, I'm kind of dodging the question that way. Aladino, I think, is a great cigar. I think that, obviously Fuente has a lot of incredible stuff. La Florida Dominicana, they have this little petite Cameroon that I don't even know if they sell that much of, but I love it. I think it's just an amazing cigar. Again, like, whether it's Skip Martin or it's the guys over at Espinosa, I like a lot of the stuff he's doing. AJ, what I would say is when I'm not smoking our cigars and I have the opportunity to smoke something, I want to smoke something that I feel is very different. Because it's like if you have a Scotch bar, when you go to another bar, you don't want to drink Scotch. You want to try the bourbons and the tequila, whatever. And so that's kind of how I approach it when I have the opportunity to smoke something. Is I want to taste other things that different profiles, basically.
Yeah. Well, and I remember when we interviewed Nick Perdomo, kind of a similar answer in the way of he's like, if you want to know other things that are up and coming in the market, you kind of have to stay on point with that. Now, when you are smoking Aganorsa, is there a particular blend that you is your go-to, or that you have a soft spot for?
So a couple of on this, like there's an expression in Spanish, no fumes la ganancia, don't smoke the profits. So other than like validation periods when something's launching, like for instance, like I'll probably not get to really smoke much rare leaf other than when like the first few shipments come in, we have to smoke it to make sure it's right. But beyond that, I won't get to smoke that much of it because it's for the retailer. Supreme Leaf, like I said, I mean, I get to smoke a few for validation, and then if I get any more, I'll be buying them because that's the only way that I can smoke them. But I smoke Guardian of the Farm, the Rambo size, quite a bit. I love that size. It's just it's a short Robusto, and I can smoke it in the morning with my coffee. I can smoke it later in the day. Our Aganorsa Leaf Corojo, made in Miami. I love that cigar. We have a brand called Buena Cosecha, which is not well known, but it's very Corojo dominant. It's a blend that kind of led me to join the company. Because they handed it to me when I was talking to the company about working with them, and I looked at the band at the time and I was kind of like, this is kind of an ugly band. It's like, why would they give me this to smoke? But the cigar was so excellent. I was like, wow, this is a really incredible cigar. And then it made me think of kind of the company in general. It was a company that everybody loved the tobacco, but not a lot of people knew about it. And the best cigar you've never heard of is one you don't smoke. So that's what kind of attracted me to the company. It's like, if we can just get people to be aware of this, and that's where our retail partners like you come in, and working with them, we can really be successful because the product is great. And so I kind of turned that away from the question, but Guardian of the Farm, Buena Cosecha, Aganorsa Leaf Corojo, those are all ones I smoke pretty regularly. And I'll tell you, if I had to buy all our cigars, the JFR Super Toro, that would be a big part of the rotation. I mean, for the price point, I think that's just an incredible cigar. I mean,
I was going to ask you. Okay, so as a consumer, if we can't get our hands on something like Supreme Leaf or Rare Leaf on the normal, is there a particular cigar that you would say this is a good representation of what Aganorsa does so well? Like this is their kind of known for.
I would say, well, again, I'm going to pick a couple here, which is cheating, but so Guardian the Farm, I think is a great example, both with the shade grown wrapper that gives you a really distinctive flavor profile, and the original for our Corojo. It's just got a great balance to it. I tend to recommend those two a lot. The Aganorsa Leaf Corojo, as I said, which we make in Miami, that's a great one that highlights our tobacco. And then that Buena Cosecha, if you can find, we don't sell a lot of it. It's not a big brand for us, but it's a really great cigar, and it's what got me, to work here. So there's gonna be something said for that.
So when we did a first, I think it was last Saturday. We did we're in partnership next door to a coffee shop. Oh, cool. So I don't know why it didn't occur to me earlier, but I was like, we should do a coffee and cigar event, like where you have a signature amount of cigars and then your coffee and see how they blend together. So we offer 3 different cigars, and I think oftentimes what people associate coffee and cigars is early morning, meaning mild. And it is true. Most of the time those work, but at the same time, it's unfortunate because there are some darker, stronger cigars that go really well with coffee. So 2 of our offerings was the Guardian of the Farm Natural and Guardian of the Farm Night Watch. And there's a handful of cigars that we offer in our humidor that I believe pair exceptionally well with coffee. And that Guardian of the Farm in the JJ Robusto size is one that just kind of clicks when you have it with coffee, especially even like you put cream or sugar in it. It brings the sweetness of the wrapper out when you're actually smoking it, and it's a great pairing.
Yeah, I have a Guardian of the Farm often in the morning with my coffee. I know you said you can have it later in the day, which is true as well. But I just think they go so well together. That's like a perfect pairing, is that Guardian and my coffee in the morning. That's one of my favorite things to have. And to your point, you can do it later. It's just because I generally drink coffee in the morning. Right. I did that Rare Leaf, and it was a great pairing. But it just afterwards I was like, whoo, I need to get some food in my stomach here. So.
Well, and because I think Aganorsa is so predominant, Corojo 99, Criollo 98. It struck me as strange that you guys did a release of the Habano, the Aganorsa Habano. I tried it at a humidor and absolutely loved it. Is that also a tobacco that you grow?
No, so that's actually from Ecuador. So we also like to have expression, like our rendition of that style of wrapper. So that Habano is from Ecuador. We have a Connecticut Ecuador, which another great coffee pairing, by the way. And it's not a mild Connecticut. It's a much richer, more bold Connecticut. That's balanced still. It's not, sometimes with Connecticut, it's either very mild or it kind of gets kind of unbalanced and harsh because they're trying to jack it up too much. I think ours is one of the best expressions of Connecticut you can have. Our San Andres, Maduros on our Aganorsa Leaf Maduro line. So with those wrappers, even though they're not grown by us, what we're trying to do is say, okay, this is our interpretation of this wrapper. And I think that's still pretty unique because they generally don't taste like other cigars that utilize that wrapper and the profiles they're known for.
Well, exactly. And that Habano, to me, was more in like the mild to medium side of strength and very creamy on the back end, which is not typically seen in most Habano wrappers, at least the stuff that I've smoked personally.
Yeah, no, agreed. We one of the ideas that we want to kind of get out there is that, if it tastes like everything else, just smoke what you were smoking. Remember those commercials about Toyota? If it's just like a Toyota, buy a Toyota. It's like it's like why they're saying it's just like us, so why even buy that? So it's kind of the same thing. It's like if it's going to taste just like any other Habano, if it's going to taste like any other Connecticut, if it's going to taste like any other San Andres, then just keep smoking the one you're smoking. What we're trying to do is create unique expressions of these things so that if the person enjoys it, they're not going to find it, elsewhere. And again, sometimes they might prefer. That's the fun of. I always say that at the end of the day, let your palate decide, and that's why we do these educational things so that people can improve their palate, improve their understanding of their palate, because you guys are the ones that decide. I mean, you smoke it, and you either like it or you don't, and that's all that matters at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it doesn't matter what I say or anybody else. It's the consumer or the smoker, I should say, is the one dictating whether it's the right cigar.
Now, with the factory of Aganorsa and where it's located in Nicaragua, is that in Condega or is that in Esteli?
It's in Esteli. We have also a small factory in Jalapa as well, but the main factory is in Esteli. Almost everybody is based in Esteli. Logistically, it's much easier there. Like there's a lot of industry there. Jalapa, obviously, or Condega, there's a lot of tobacco industry, but it's more growing operations. So, like, even for Jalapa, I mean, it's a benefit because Nicaragua is so popular right now. It's hard to get rollers in Esteli because everybody's there. So it's easier up in Jalapa to get people to come work for you. But it's logistically more complicated. You've got to ship all the tobacco up there. It's about 4-hour drive, other than the Jalapa tobacco. And then anything that needs to be done has to be brought up there. Whereas in Esteli, you can kind of, it's a decent sized city at this point after all the years of development from tobacco. And so there's a lot of, if a truck breaks down or this or that, there's things that can be overcome a lot more easily than in Jalapa, which is very rural. And it's, again, to this day, when I'm up there, like if you're out there in the morning in the field, I mean, it's like dead silence. It's like you're not used to hearing dead silence in the modern world, and it's kind of a cool thing. You're like, oh wow, listen, it's a bit
and I think we were kind of fortunate in that avenue, being that we're in a very rural area. Our elevation is about 4,800.
Oh wow!
And so we kind of have that. I mean, we get that a lot from our consumers. You're smoking a cigar and you're hearing the birds, you're hearing nature. You're not really hearing like motorized vehicles, ambulances going around. It's a unique experience for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah. Wow. I'm in Miami, so I'm at 0 altitude. So you're about you're in outer space compared to me.
Now I know too. Like during COVID, with all the other struggles that were coming along, it seemed like for last year we almost experienced sort of like a mini cigar boom in like consumption going up. Do you think there would be a big issue with like supply and demand as that's considered?
I mean, I think there already is to some degree. I mean, we've been very fortunate. Again, we grow most of our tobacco ourselves, so we have inventories and things. But even for us, it's a challenge when you have a lot of people that were sitting, at the bar on Friday, had a cigar or two maybe, and then that was it for the week. And now they work home every day, and they have a couple every day. That's a huge increase in consumption. And then you add the fact that, the guy or the woman, or either one, not to be sexist, is looking at their credit card statement or whatever, and their significant other starts saying, "Hey, what's going on here?" With the so then they're looking also for value, which benefits us as well. Being vertically integrated, our price points tend to be more attractive. So we've not only experienced the guys that are smoking Aganorsa are smoking more of it. Also, we have a lot of new consumers, partly because of the work that our retail partners like yourself do that bring awareness to us, and also because of we're at a great price point in the market at all levels, and that combination has been dynamite.
Well, yeah, no, it's true. I mean, you expect something like Supreme Leaf for the quality you're smoking and also the rarity of it. Like, I figure most places, like you see Supreme Leaf on the shelf for $20, and you're like, okay, this makes sense. But I mean, it's oftentimes a lot of your offerings are like half that price point, to where it's like if you didn't know what you're smoking, you almost think, am I, not from the taste, but the price point, am I smoking an unbanded cigar? Because the price is incredibly competitive.
Yeah, and that's very important. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm very blessed. I don't have to take my hard-earned money out of my pocket too often and buy cigars. I get to smoke at the office, and then again, in the industry, people always share with each other. But most people have to go into a cigar shop and spend the money that they worked hard for. And I try to always be cognizant of that. And as a company, we're not saying, okay, how much can we make? We're saying, okay, this is what it costs us to make. let's put it out at a price that that will be attractive to and fair and allow a lot more people to enjoy it.
Yeah, and I even had a few of my close friends who are also consumers. When I told them, hey, yeah, we sold out of Supreme Leaf, I'm sorry, within 2 hours, they're like, well, how come it was more expensive then? It's like, well, that's not really the game we're playing. It's more of, we want more people to smoke it and enjoy it. It's not just about turning the dollar and gouging people for what they've got.
Yeah, we're not selling yachts here. I mean, if you can sell a yacht for $70 million or something like that, you know, and you shouldn't do it even in that case. But if you rip the guy off, well, you sold a $70 million yacht. We're selling a product that even on the high end, let's just say $30, $40 or something like that.
Right.
If that person doesn't enjoy it, if that person is not, if you're not building a relationship with your
Right.
consumer, you've lost the real value there. The real value is the trust that you get from the consumer when they go, okay, I know my retailer, I know this brand, and I know what I'm getting when I go to the store or I purchase this cigar, and that's really priceless. I mean, that's if you have that, you win, and so that's very important to us because could we jack the price up on something and probably sell a hell of a lot of it, a little bit, for a little bit, sure, but then people start saying, oh man, that puts me out of my price range, and then how come this cigar that was a few months ago $4 less now $4 more, the tobacco didn't go up that much in price, so so we try to be cognizant of that and build that trust.
And for someone in California, it's an excellent situation because we're dealing with extremely high tobacco tax. And so some things are like, hey, I can find this online for this much, which is oftentimes 50-56% cheaper anywhere else. It's much more difficult to carry those brands that are a bit more expensive. But it's like, no, you can experience a high quality product at a more affordable price. It's a win-win situation for us.
Yeah, and that's, to be honest with you, to some degree, the benefit of the Supreme Leaf, where nobody got more than a certain amount of it, basically. And that allows for somebody like yourself, where that guy in a low tax state sold his X number of boxes to probably his local customers for the most part, and maybe a couple other people. So you have the ability to compete a little bit more because you have a product. So you're like, okay, I have them. And this is hard to find. And so that adds a value because what you do is incredibly difficult. I mean, I don't even know how, to be honest with you. I mean, they put every challenge to you that's possible in California. So it's always good to talk to somebody like yourself that's positive and is doing well, because it's very easy to get frustrated with every day there's a new tax, there's a new enforcement, there's this or that. I mean, we experience it too to some degree, of course, but certainly, not to the overall degree that people in states like California or New York or like that do.
And honestly, as a retail shop owner, you experience different cigars at different quality rates, and then you start putting them in different categories. Oh, this is your $8 cigar, this is your $10 cigar. And then there's that category of this cigar smokes above its price point. There's a handful of them. One of them we experienced was like the Crow Magnon from Roma Craft. That cigar, for its price point, smokes way above its price point. But the Supreme Leaf is in that. I mean, honestly, majority of all of Aganorsa's offerings, the Night Watch, the normal Guardian of the Farm, even the Torch, like they all smoke above their price point, and you're tasting the quality without being gouged. And it's just, it's a huge blessing.
Yeah, you got to come work for us, man. You got to come work. You're doing great. Yeah. No, that's really the idea. Is again, there's lots of great cigars, but I feel that like for the value, we're always we want exactly what you just said. A person to be like, wow, I would pay more for that, or that's worth more than what I paid, and that, I think that's very powerful when you feel a person's really getting value, and I think that helps to build that trust we were talking about.
And I think a lot of that speaks to the fact that because you guys are such a huge production in tobacco itself, there's this security, at least I feel when I light up one of your cigars. It's like, well, it's not only a brand that they own and they have, but they know their tobacco and they know what they do well. They know what they do wrong. And so it's a security when you're lighting up that cigar, because it's not just, oh, I bought tobacco from so and so and I'm trying to produce this brand. Yeah, and it's really refreshing. I honestly think it's what the industry needs more. I would like to see it more, at least.
Yeah, one of the best things I can hear, a testament to what we're doing, is that when I see somebody pick up, where there's a small boutique brand we make called Black Star Lines, based out of Chicago, and I saw posts where they're like, "Oh, I saw that Aganorsa made it, so I picked one up." And that's great to hear, because that means we're doing a good job of providing that consistent experience, to the point where somebody can see a cigar they haven't heard of before and say, "Oh, made by Aganorsa. Okay, well, I'll try that."
Right. Well, and even when I had tried that Habano, when I picked it up at another shop, I was like, I don't see how this is possible for $8. Like, this doesn't make sense to me. And so, yeah, and I mean, a home run on the Corona Gorda.
Thank you.
I would say I've enjoyed it even more than the Toro size. It's great.
Yeah. For me, again, I'm always biased, because I work for the company. But the Corona Gorda, to me, is the best expression thus far. But although usually I'm in the minority on these things, a lot of time, like, again, I like Lanceros. I always have to separate my own personal preferences from what I'm doing for work, because it's you have to put a little bit different of a hat on sometimes. Otherwise, we wouldn't sell 880 cigars. But we look at the sales numbers, and we're like, well, there's a guy out here that likes this, and we produce one. If that's what you like to smoke, you definitely want to smoke ours. But I'll be the first one to say, like, I'm just not smoking 880s. It's not my thing. But there's a consumer for it, and we're trying to provide a great experience for him too. And that's really what the business is about. I mean, if you only, how many e-cigars, in your humidor have you been like, well, that's not my personal preference, but God, I have guys that love it, and so you carry it because. And it's a good cigar. It's not your taste for whatever reason. And so it's always, you got to keep those two different hats on.
Yeah. So a question I normally ask most people I interview, just because I'm curious, is starting out, is there a few premium brands or cigars that you smoked, like, that got you into smoking cigars, that got you into the industry?
Yeah, so I mean, I have a little bit of a different background for that, because I have family that are actually in the cigar industry, and that's how I got into it. My uncle is a gentleman named Manuel Quesada, who's our family goes back in tobacco. We're talking about the relative timelines of how long to the 1880s. So they were in tobacco in Cuba, and then they came to the Dominican Republic, and when I was younger, I spent the summer in the factory just for fun. I just wanted to go down and spend the summer in Dominican Republic. I said, what the heck, I'll work in a cigar factory. But then I started going to dinner or lunch in the afternoon at my uncle's house on Sundays, and we'd all sit around and play cards and eat and smoke cigars. And in the beginning, I was younger at the time. I didn't really smoke at all. In fact, I don't think I smoked at all. And they said, well, why don't you have a cigar? And I remember it was a Fonseca Petit Bellicoso. They recently sold the Fonseca brand to my father, but it was for like 30 something, maybe 40 years. It was owned and distributed by Quesada, and that was my first cigar. And I remember just sitting there and the enjoyment of kind of that. You have a cigar and you're having a great time, and it just added another aspect to all that. And I remember thinking, well, man, there's something to this. And then later on, when I got a little bit older, I got involved in the business. But I remember that's my first cigar.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I want to thank you again, Terence, for joining us. It's been great hearing about Aganorsa tobacco, and thank you again for the release of the Supreme Leaf. Amazing offerings. We enjoy them all.
No, thank you for having me, and thank you for your support. And it's a pleasure. Let's get one of these Aganorsa experiences going one of these days with the FEMAs, and I'd love to do that with you.
Definitely. And for those watching, once again, if you'd like to pick up the sampler, which includes the Supreme Leaf, it's all we got left, click on the link in the description and follow it to our website. You'll see it on the banner, and go and pick up that. It's a great representation of what Aganorsa can offer. And you also get an offering that will not be available for another 6 months. So thank you again, Terence, and take it easy, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Take care, brother. Appreciate you.
All right. Thanks again.
Bye.